Many say that the AFC North is the best division in football. They say that because it's true. While the Chiefs have been the best overall team, the AFC North has been the best overall division. The North has been represented in each of the last 3 AFC Championship games. Welcome back, or welcome to America Sports. We're going to break down everything that's happened in the AFC North over the last year and what will happen this year. And because any jackass can give you their predictions after the fact, we want you to write in the comments below what you think will happen in the AFC North, places 1 through 4th. So, let's get into it. Per usual, we start with the team that finished last in the division, and that was the Cincinnati Bengals. As last year, they were 9-8. This year, they are tied for the 3rd highest win total over-under, and the majority of the time, they have the 2nd best odds to win the AFC North. Currently, right now, DraftKings is the only one that gives them the best odds to win the North. For a team in 2023 that had high hopes to not only win the AFC North, but for a chance to go back to the Super Bowl, things went just about as wrong as they possibly could have last year. Joe Burrow, the quarterback, only plays in 10 games. A lot of the offense missed games, really, except for Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd. And yet, the team still goes 9-8. 9-8 wins you the NFC South Division last year, and they had a very respectable playoff run. Let's go into who Cincinnati lost. First off, probably the biggest hit was losing DJ Reader. 2 years ago, the Cincinnati team was really good at stopping the run. You need that in the AFC North, one of, if not the best rushing division in football. He's not really a sack guy, but anyone will tell you he's one of the better run stoppers. His problem has been staying healthy. He's on Detroit now, and he's hurt for them. He never did play a full 17-game season for Cincinnati as well. Next up on the defense, they lost Awuzie, who before his injury was one of the best DBs that Cincinnati had had in a while, probably since Leon Hall. He got injured midseason in 2022, came back for 2023 and played 15 games, but he was really not the same. He actually got beat a lot. I do wish him the best. He went to Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, on the offensive side, we lose wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was a great locker room guy in Cincinnati. Then we've lost our main man running back, who's been the number 1 since 2017 in Joe Mixon, and he's always been a stud. Another great locker room guy in Cincinnati that was lost. He's had 4 1,000-plus yard rushing seasons, and last year he had 12 total touchdowns, 9 of them rushing. Now, those are pretty big, impactful players, no doubt. But let's see what Cincinnati added to the roster. I think they added more than they've lost, to be honest with you. First off, other than Trey Hendrickson, who obviously gets a lot of sacks, the only other main contributor is really Sam Hubbard when it comes to getting sacks and affecting the passer. Well, so Cincinnati goes along and gets Sheldon Rankins from the Houston Texans, who had 6 sacks and a forced fumble last year and has consistently been good since entering the NFL. But for me, the biggest pickup is picking up safety Geno Stone, and they were able to get 2 safeties in this offseason. Geno Stone had a career year. He was number 2 in the NFL in interceptions with 7. That's more than guys like Derek Stingley Jr. and Jesse Bates. All right, now what did they do on offense? Last year, the Cincinnati Bengals went from basically having no tight ends to Tanner Hudson flashed out last season, and they brought in Mike Gesicki, who I think is going to have a great connection with Burrow. We've seen Joe get career years out of the tight ends. They also drafted an offensive lineman in the 1st round in Amarius Mims, and they brought in Trent Brown from the Patriots. Both of them just huge human beings. And they also brought in Zach Moss, who before Jonathan Taylor signed that contract with Indianapolis, Zach Moss was balling. The Colts beat the Ravens last year, and Zach Moss was a huge primary reason why the Colts beat Baltimore. And then at wide receiver, we drafted Jermaine Burton in the 3rd round. And when you look at the first part of the schedule, yeah, they got the Chiefs week 2 and the Ravens week 5. But after 6 weeks, if they can just beat either one of the Ravens and the Chiefs, reasonably be 5-1 after 6 weeks of football. An easier schedule than what they've had to deal with over the last 3 years this season, bodes well for a team that usually plays better in December. They're like the exact opposite of what the Miami Dolphins are. So with the over-under wins at 10.5, I do like the over here. They were 1-5 in the division last year, and I think they're definitely going to be better than that. I'm going to give them a 3-3 division record, but I'm giving them a 12-5 overall record. Just 2 seasons ago, they were 12-4, and if that Bengals and Bills game had concluded, they would have been 13-4. A very, very good record is definitely possible, even in the best division in football. In third place in the AFC North in 2023 was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were still able to get in the playoffs, though, with a 10-7 record. The key for them was being 5-1 in the division. This year, they had the worst odds to win the division, ranging anywhere from +600 to +800, with their win total over-under is at 8.5 games. The Steelers have stayed above 500 every single year in the 2020s. It's kind of disrespectful to say it's mediocrity because you've literally been over 500 every year, but nobody ever expects them to go far. Their point differential of the last 3 years tells you this team is overachieving every single year. I think the coaching, like Mike Tomlin, and the defense keeps them afloat. I've always been kind of sort of jealous of them having those two, Tomlin and TJ Watt. Now, they've had wide receivers there, and the run game has been there too. They've really just needed a consistent quarterback since Big Ben left the team and retired. Then when they make the playoffs, they could actually have a chance against the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs of the world. So what did they do? What are they going to do about this? Well, they got rid of their first, second, and third string quarterbacks to bring in a few more. Kenny Pickett is now backing up with the Eagles, Mitchell Trubisky is backing up with the Bills, and Mason Rudolph is with the Tennessee Titans. At wide receiver, Deontay Johnson is gone. He went to Carolina, and Allen Robinson II goes to the New York Giants. On defense, they lost guys like linebacker Mikael Walker. He goes to Washington. DB Levi Wallace goes to the Denver Broncos, who we talked about in the first video that you can check right up here if you'd like to. Make sure to comment as well. And also, linebacker Miles Jack is no longer with the Steelers. He's not with anyone yet. For the most part, though, they got the core and the majority of their defense back, which really has been the backbone of Pittsburgh, and really it should be of every major team. TJ Watt has a real chance to be the greatest sack getter that we've ever seen, and for my money, he's the best defensive player that I've seen with my own 2 eyes. Over the last few seasons, he has willed the team to get some wins that they shouldn't have. It's really going to come down to the quarterback play. Watt had 19 sacks last year. He led the NFL, and that's not even the most he's had in a season before. 15 sacks will pass Aaron Donald in 2 less seasons. 19 sacks will pass J.J. Watt, and you have done it in 3 less seasons. Their biggest pickup was getting Patrick Queen. Not only do you get a player of a high caliber like Patrick Queen, but you get to pick him from the Ravens. They did lose some wide receivers, but they still have George Pickens, and they picked up some in free agency, Van Jefferson being one of them, and Cordell Patterson, who can play wide receiver, he can play running back, he can just play offensive football. And they also got safety Deshaun Elliott as well, which is a sneaky good pickup. PFF has the defensive line ranked 8th overall in the NFL, while they have the offensive line ranked 9th. So there really shouldn't be any other issues unless the quarterback gets less than consistent play. The old saying has always gone, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have no quarterbacks. But just like with Cincinnati, I like the way their schedule starts out. And I would say Pittsburgh does need to get off to a hot start because weeks 11 through 18, shit gets serious. I am banking on saying they're not going to go 5-1 in the AFC North again, though. Their over-under win total is at 8.5, and I like them at 9 wins. I've got them at 9-8, and I'm going to give them a 3-3 division record, placing 3rd in the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns got 2nd place in the North last season. They had an 11-6 record, and they were 3-3 in the division last year. They, of course, made the playoffs and got bounced by the Houston Texans. This year, they're anywhere from +450 to about +600 to win the division with the 3rd best odds, and their win total over-under is at 8.5. The Browns had an unbelievable defense that was still able to get them into the playoffs despite losing their quarterback and having to pick one up off of the couch in Joe Flacco to go and play in that playoff game. And it's the weirdest thing, man. During the whole entire year, at home, they were just this unstoppable force of defense, and they were, amazing. Even though they really didn't score a whole lot of points, they shut you the fuck down in Cleveland. My therapist said that I should, speak well about the Cleveland Browns. So there you go. I'm just kidding, Northern Ohio. I love you. But on the road, it was literally the worst defense in the NFL, at least in terms of giving up points, which is the worst. And speaking of that defense, let's start with that defense on the losses. First off, we'll start with Taki. He is now in the New England Patriots jersey. Taki spent his first 5 seasons in Cleveland and played in at least 15 games out of 4 of those seasons. And linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. signs with the Miami Dolphins after playing the last 3 years in Cleveland. A guy who didn't really miss games for them, though, was defensive tackle Jordan Elliott. He's now with the San Francisco 49ers. Tight end Harrison Bryant signed with the Las Vegas Raiders, which we pretty much assumed that would happen since Joku had a great season last year. And when I say we, I mean I. Mike Ford Jr. signs with the Houston Texans, and they will not have Joe Flacco as a backup this year to help this team out. He signed with the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, so who did the Browns add to this roster? Backup quarterback Jameis Winston. They did bring in a linebacker for the losses of their linebackers in Jordan Hicks, who played with Minnesota over the last couple seasons. Hicks is a guy that defends passes and gets tackles. And they also got linebacker Devin Bush, who mostly played his career with Pittsburgh, but last year played with Seattle. On the offense, they brought in wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, who played the first part of his career in Denver. The Browns in the draft didn't have any first-round picks, but they had 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, and also nothing in the 4th, so half of their picks were through rounds 5 through 7. But honestly, I don't know how many of them are going to get much playing time at all when it comes to playing big minutes this season. And at the time of making this video, the offensive line has 2 major important guys, are still hurt. Nick Chubb, we know, is probably still a ways away. I am beginning to doubt that he's going to play week 1. It's probably going to be later in this season. And then their DB, Greg Newsome, had surgery just a few weeks ago. I do worry about them on the road again. I'm not sure they can keep up being as good at home as they were last year. That said, this is still a good football team. PFF gives the defensive line a number 5 ranking in the NFL, and they give the offensive line the number 4 ranking. I think besides Detroit and Philly, that's like the best combo of O and D lines that PFF has given anybody. And like Pittsburgh, the end of their schedule is really sucks for them. I give them a 9-8 record, and I got them going 2-4 in the division, which gives them 4th in the division. Ever since the merger in 2002, which became the AFC North we know it today, the Cleveland Browns have not won the division yet. The Baltimore Ravens won the AFC North division last season. They had a 13-4 record, and they were 3-3 in the division, though. They lost in the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs. This year, they are the majority favorites to win the North again, ranging from plus 135 to 145. Their win total over-under is also listed at 10.5. Tied for the most in the North was the Cincinnati Bengals. So while you have crazy competition inside of the AFC North, and you may not even win that division, you still have to look at how do we get past Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team a year ago that had 60 sacks and was the number 1 team in turnover differential, and also the best point differential overall. That team still did not beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, over the last decade, if you look at the teams that have played in the AFC Championship, if you take out the Patriots and the Chiefs, only the Bengals were able to go back to the AFC Championship again the following year. Statistically, it's hard to get to these situations. How do you get yourself back to the AFC Championship, and how do you get over the hump of beating the Chiefs when you were already in Baltimore last year? Well, as we discussed in the video already, Patrick Queen goes to the Patrick Steelers. Patrick Queen goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Geno Stone goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. In the first division prediction video, we mentioned that the Ravens lost 2 running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Now, J.K. has been hurt a lot for the Ravens over the years, but he can still really get it when he's healthy. I believe that. Gus Edwards has been steady for them for years as well. They call him the Gus Bus. Odell Beckham Jr. is also off of the Ravens squad. He is down in Miami, which could make for possibly the greatest wide receiver trio in the league. Linebacker Jadeveon Clowney is also gone off the team. He's with the Carolina Panthers, and he was 9.5 sacks, 5 passes defended, and 2 forced fumbles. He was a big deal with Baltimore last year. They also lost defensive back Ronald Darby to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they really got kicked in the teeth in the offensive line. They lost 3 starters from last year: Morgan Moses, Kevin Zeitler, and John Simpson. So even though they did lose their second most sack getter last season, they locked in their first for 4 more years and their third for 2 more years. But other than the players that they re-signed, there's really only one big addition that they added in free agency, and that was getting running back Derrick Henry. Duo between him and the quarterback Lamar Jackson is going to be a crazy good one. They could have an even better run game than they had the year before. We mentioned the offensive line a minute ago, and they are the 25th ranked in the NFL. And the defensive line is ranked 12th. I think the defensive line should be ranked a little bit better than that, but it shows you where they're at in the offensive line. I still don't love their wide receiver trio, especially now that a vet like OBJ is gone. I like their draft. I always do. They got defense and they got offensive linemen. Now, their schedule compared to the rest of the AFC North is the hardest. They finished first last year, so duh. Starting off on the road in Kansas City will be a doozy, of course. And their over-under win total is at 10.5. I'm not 100% sure on this. I'm looking right at that 10-7 or 11-6. I'm going to officially call them an 11-6 football team. I do think that they lost more than they added, and I don't think this team is as good as last year, even if the run game is a little bit better, which gives them second place in the AFC North. Like and subscribe for a lot more of America's sports, and be sure to comment 1st through 4th place in each division video. Share this with your brother, your father, anybody that is into sports, and you'll catch me in the next one.